Hey YouTubers, Mike Martin's here, Mike Martin's channel. Thanks for following me here on the Vancouver housing crisis. Because it's the #1 talked about topic everywhere. Everywhere you go, people are talking about the price of houses. From Manhattan to San Diego to Florida, all the way to Vancouver to Ottawa and Toronto, London, Melbourne. Everywhere you go in the English-speaking countries, real estate is a big discussion everywhere, on planes, trains, everywhere you go, automobiles, highways, HOV lanes. People are talking about the price of houses. And one thing that goes along with the price of housing that they talk about is the crash. The big crash. When's it going to happen? Who's it going to affect? Who will be affected the most? Will interest rate push people away from the market? Will the foreign investors go to other cities to invest? What will happen with this crash? How this crash will affect all Canadians? But there's one person that's against all odds in saying the bubble won't burst, according to a expert. Let's see what she's got to say here. I read this article. It's a good one. Don't expect the housing bubble to burst, says expert. The senior editor of MoneySense doesn't expect any major city crashes in the market this year. Now let's give it a chance, okay? Vancouver News, 11:30. Housing was the biggest story in 2016 in Metro Vancouver, but don't expect local residential real estate markets to collapse this year. Romana King, a senior editor of MoneySense magazine, says the housing bubble will shrink, and despite endless predictions of its inevitability, it will not burst. We're not going to see any big major crashes because there is still a great deal of demand and very little supply, she explains. We saw the US crash and assume there are always massive housing bubbles, but that's not the case. Housing bubbles are actually quite rare because of the huge transactional costs. It's a lot slower moving than a market, to say, than any stock market or bond market. I beg to differ because houses doubled in price in 1 year. So when you buy a house at $400,000, the next year it's worth $800,000. I beg to differ on that. I haven't seen any stocks. Well, I've seen several stocks double in price, but that's more fate and luck of the draw. This is people's futures here. This is housing, right? We saw the crash, and we assume that there is always a massive bubble, and bubbles... Oh, I read that part already. But that's not all. That said, we know that the housing bubbles do occur. It happens in the United States. It actually happened in Canada. They're just not as extreme in Canada because we have different regulations and different regulatory models for the banks as well, adds Miss King. But, in all fairness, MoneySense is a very professional business magazine. I do subscribe to it. I read its articles. I understand, different types of retirement plans, different types of investments, different types of stocks to get into, and ETAs and dividend-paying stocks, and they have articles of the top dividend-paying stocks for this year, or the top paying stocks for tech companies, stuff like that, and they're good to follow up, and kind of see what's going on in the market. So it is a reputable source. So let's continue with the story. She does expect the mortgage parameters to push down slightly, but notes that the overall inventory of homes remain low, which is true. Enough of the changes to mortgage regulations. To the little uptick in mortgage rates have pushed enough of the buyers out, so we're going to start to see some decline in demand that will push the prices down as well, says King. So you could see very easily that in all fairness, I'm just going to go back here. I think slightly contradiction, but that's okay. There are lots of buyers out there that are still eager to get into the lower mainland housing market, and that demand is pushing up prices still. Yeah, but just because you want to get in doesn't mean that the market's going to speculate on people wanting to be part of the market. I mean, wanting to be part of something doesn't make you officially part of it, even though, anyways. The Canadian Real Estate Association predicts 12.2% drop in sales, 7.8% in the average price in BC this year. We'll see more of the same gradual decline in prices and sales. 2017, unless there are an influx of supply that comes on the market, says CREA chief economist Gregory Klump. Okay, so what do you guys think? Please Is it not going to be as drastic as the U.S. with the housing crash? I'd like to know. Comment below, because I really want to get a good conversation going with this. Because the number one talk is, when is the crash going to happen? Who will it affect, primarily? What will happen when people walk away from the mortgages? That's the number one topic that's going around, is this housing crash. I'm going to leave a link below for you guys to comment and tell me what you guys think about it. Because this is a big deal. There's a lot of people's futures in hand. A lot of people wanting, like they said, to be in the market. But it doesn't make it worth more if people are not in it, right? What do I know? I don't know anything. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this. Could it just be a mild decline in prices and things continue going forward? And because there is less demand than supply, or is a higher demand oversupply? Could that shake the boat a bit? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I see a mini crash in March, and I see the massive crash in the summer. And I've been predicting that for years now. People who've been following me on here for years know, because this is one of the hottest topics everywhere you go. Anyone you talk to. Anyone is talking about the housing market in English-speaking countries. Anyways, guys, comment below. Let me know. Big hug, and thanks for watching, guys.